Hello, everybody. Welcome to an all-new episode of Beyond the Barricade. We are live. It is 8:04, and we're going to start because my guests tonight are just super busy. So let's get them on. Let's introduce first Herb Simmons, returning back. Hi, Herb. How are you, buddy?
Man, I think this is the quickest re-invite that I've had anywhere, and I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Promoter extraordinaire. That's what I call you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words, but I've been called a lot worse, believe me.
All right, let's bring our guest. I guess you're going to be my co-host for the night.
There you go.
Let's bring out Darla. Hi, Darla.
Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you on. What about you?
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, listen, when Herb calls and says, hey, I got a great guest for you, I drop everything. I say, let's do it, Herb.
I love my Herb.
And love of my life right there, her and my wife and Barbara and Pam. I'm just a lucky guy.
You are lucky, yeah. I wish I was as lucky as you, but I'm not. I'm nobody.
I'm telling you. Well, as I keep adding names to the big show coming up, I keep getting calls from Darla and Barbara and Pam and Barbara saying, you got to get a bigger poster, Herb.
Yeah, I mean, I got a sample of a poster you had earlier, and it's like, yeah, you're gonna need a bigger poster.
Yeah, exactly. In fact,
I just added
another name that really made Darla's day, Spike Huber.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I almost cried when I saw that.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about the Sam Muchnick Award. And Darla is the recipient of this award this year. So, Herb, I'm going to turn it over to you, my co-host.
Well, thank you very much. And again, yes, she is the recipient of the award that we started just last year. We started it, came up, Nick Rednire, my senior referee. He's another one of the all-time great fans and one of my official referees. And he said, we need to do something to honor the legacy and the name of Sam Muchnick. So last year, it was hands down, Barbara Goodish got that because every year she comes in and all the work that her late great husband did for the St. Louis wrestling. And so this year it was the same way, hands down. Him and I talked and I said, look, it's got to be Darla. This young lady attended her first wrestling match in 1959. Now you're saying, wait a minute, there's no way. She's not that old. When I say she attended her first match in 1959, she was a little baby, and her father and mother had her at ringside when Pat O'Connor won the National Wrestling Alliance title from Dick Hutton, and her father had her in his arms. And so that was her first match. And I got to tell you, I don't know if she's missed one since, but this year she is being honored as the recipient of the Sam Muchnick Award, rightly so, very well deserving. Not only is she a good friend, she's a wrestling fanatic. She is on the executive board of the Cauliflower Alley, head of the benevolent board there. Has helped a lot of men and women in our business receive some financial aid. And I just couldn't think of anybody better to receive that award this year.
Awesome. Darla, how does it feel to be the award representative of the year?
I am so honored, first of all, to be able to have Sam Muchnick's name on an award that I'm receiving, because St. Louis wrestling, it was my life. It'll always be my life. Mm-hmm. I truly believe, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little prejudiced, but there was no one like Sam Muchnick. He was, except Herb runs a pretty close in there because of their honesty and the way they treated. I mean, not only did he treat his wrestlers very well, but he always treated his fans just as well. No matter how busy he was, he always would take time out to speak with you if you wanted to, talk to him about something. And to be able to receive this award with his name on it, it is truly special to me and very humbling.
Awesome. So you knew Sam?
Yes, I did.
Awesome. What was your first interaction with Sam?
Probably just the first interaction with him was when we would go to Kiel Auditorium, and this was in my teenage years when I started going with friends. They had a stage entrance that all of the wrestlers would go through. Well, the fans would always stand back there before the matches, watch the guys come in, and Sam would always come in through the stage entrance, and we would just stop and say, "Hi, Mr. Muchnick, how you doing?" And then a few years later, when I started becoming friends with all of them, I was able to go to his office one time and just sit and talk to him, it was just like a friend, and he was just always so very kind.
That's awesome. Herb, what has been your interaction with Sam?
Oh, see, well, I'm kind of like Darla. My first encounter with him was at a dinner engagement that Larry Matisek had taken me to, because Larry knew that I was, into the wrestling on a small scale, and I was so wanting to learn more about the behind the curtains of the business. And Sam always liked to go out to the racetrack, the ponies. And they had a steak place out there that served great steaks. And Sam would always want to partake in a nice steak dinner. And so Larry had called me and said, "Come on, we're going to go out to dinner." And I didn't know who we were going to go see until we pulled on the lot. And I kind of put two and two together. And we walk in, and Sam is sitting there. And we sat down. And I've told this story 1,000 times. I know, Darla, you've heard it. But so, we're sitting there, small talk. And Sam's cutting a steak up. And, we're having a few cocktails. And he said, "Well, Larry tells me you want to learn more about the business." And I said, "Yes, sir. But I'm not talking about being one of the boys as far as getting in there and taking bumps and doing all that stuff, because I'm fragile. I don't want to do that." I said, "No, I want to learn more about how it all comes together, how all the pieces of the puzzles join together." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what." And he had that steak knife. And I'd always heard some of the bad rumors about the business, about how, if you cross different territories and you invade other people's territories, you may get a visit from somebody late at night. And I didn't want to have that problem. So
no, absolutely not.
Sam took that knife, and I thought, whoa, wait a minute. I hope I'm not getting ready to get one of those night visits here, at 7 o'clock. And he said, he took that knife and he pointed it to his earlobe, and he said, "You do two things." He says, "You keep these open." And he pointed it to his lips and said, "You keep this shut and you'll go a long way in this business." And that was a lesson that I've, for 50 years now, in February, I just celebrated. I've lived by that. And I got introduced to so many of the greats in the business. I was telling Darla before we came on, I was just on the phone with $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, because he's coming in for a big show. This week alone, I've talked to Ronnie Garvin. I've talked to Ricky Steamboat. And these are all guys that they call me, or I can call them, and we can have a conversation just like we're doing now. And Sam always said, "You respect the boys and they'll respect you." And I've done that. So, but then just going to the office with Larry, Larry started working for Sam Muchnick when he was 16 years old. Larry never had what we consider a job. If he ever got one, he'd always quit it, because if they made him work on a Friday night when the wrestling was at Kiel Auditorium, he'd say, "I'm not working, I'm going to wrestling." And so, and that's just the way he is. Wrestling was his life. It was his passion. And to the moment he took his last breath, Darla can tell you, she came in town and got to see him just before he passed away. And he loved Darla, she loved him, and I know he would be so happy with her getting this award.
That's awesome. Now I'm gonna ask you a question, Herb. You ready?
I'm here.
Did you have a price for the $1 Million Man?
Oh, how did you know that's what we were talking about? You had my
just
car
a hunch.
Just a hunch. Had my car bug. No, Ted is a guy. I mean, we had a situation a year ago where, and I won't mention who, but I had an individual booked on a show that stood us up, 48 hours before the event. And, it's hard to get a replacement for somebody. And
Right.
the organization, a major player in the St. Louis area, was my second year doing a private show for them. And the closest thing to ever taking you back to the Coruscant room at the Chase Park Plaza Hotel was where we had another big hotel. And so they said, who do we get? And I said, well, that's hard to do. You have to have somebody that's pretty comparable to who's not going to show up.
Right.
And I was able to call Ted. And of course, the word spread like wildfire that the person that had been booked, which I didn't really do the booking, the club did the booking. I had just set him up with the person who could book him. So I didn't have to get him a replacement, but because the way I do business, I want repeat business. And you do that by delivering a good product. And so I was able to call Ted, and he says, oh, you're wanting me to come in to pinch hit, huh? And I said, yeah, and I'm going to get you a good payday for it. And so, within 48 hours, I had him an airplane ticket, and he was here and blew the roof off the place. And so that's the kind of guy that Ted is. When I need him, he's always there.
Awesome.
Can I tell a real quick story I like to tell about Ted?
Yeah.
You can tell as many stories as you want, Darla.
Oh, I have a lot.
You're the award winner.
Well, give us a few.
I always like to tell people, most wrestling fans know Ted as the $1 Million Man. I knew Ted when he didn't have a $1.98 to his name. And I told him that one day, and he said, that's a true story. He said, you have known me that long.
Yeah.
Super nice guy.
That's awesome. He's actually going to be at an event I'm going to be at in Philly.
Oh, good. Really?
So I'm going to stop by. I'm going to ask him, do you know a guy named Herb?
You ask him, and if he says no, that's probably because I owe him some money. No, Ted. If he tells you he don't know me, then he's probably thinking I'm lurking around the corner somewhere.
He's gonna look at me and be like, "How do you know Herb?"
Yeah. So no, he's really excited about coming in
Awesome.
back. I've had him in many times over the years, and in fact, the story is that when he saw the advertisement of this show, he called me.
Oh wow!
And said, Herb, there's no Ted DiBiase or DiBiase, however that says in different places, and there is no $1 Million Man without St. Louis. He said St. Louis is what put me on the career path. Right. And he said, how comes you haven't called me yet? And of course I said, oh, you're on my list, believe me. I thought I was saving you for because the way I've been doing these is I've been negotiating and booking them. I've been doing one or two every other day or so and keep the fans intrigued. And as I told you before, this was something that I was going to just bring in 5 or 6 guys, and it's going to end up with about 40 of the legends and special guests. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I may have to call you for a loan, but
like I told you, Herb, there's no money in podcasting over here.
No. And believe me, there's none in wrestling either. It's just the passion and the love we have for it, right, Darla?
Absolutely. So I got to tell you, the day that Herb announced on Facebook that I was getting this award, I was clueless. He did not give me any warning. And I was busy at work that day, and I wasn't on Facebook or anything. And as soon as I got off work, I had a text message, and I opened it up, and it was from my good friend Andy, who is one of his right-hand men. And all it was a picture of this poster with my picture all over it. And I thought to myself, Andy, don't you have anything better to do than sit around and put my picture on a poster? But I didn't respond to it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not sure Andy would know how to do this. So I hopped on Facebook and I saw Herb's announcement, and immediately I called him and, started crying because Larry used to tell me I was the biggest crybaby he knew, but that was how I found out that I was getting the award.
The only one that really knew it was Pam, and she kept the secret. I swore her to secrecy. I said, now you can't tell her. And then I got to thinking, I got to let her know now because something may come up and she may not be able to make it in. But if I know that if I tell her, she'll be here because she knows I really want her here.
And Pam said she did not tell me. She said, this was the hardest secret I ever had to keep. She said, but Herb threatened to cut my tongue out of my mouth.
Yeah, I didn't want JJ to get mad at me.
What about when Barbara found out you were getting this award? What did she say to you?
Here's what she said. Why did they tell you? They didn't tell me when I got it.
Oh, believe me, I got an earful about that.
Did you?
But I can tell you, she was so happy. She said, Herb, she said that would have been my choice. And she said she should have probably got the first one. And I said, look, don't be making, just leave me alone. Let me do what I want to do.
Yeah, she was excited, and we're all excited because we're all going to get to be there. We were going to be there anyway, but now it makes it even better. And to be able, and JJ and Jerry Briscoe are both being inducted to the St. Louis Hall of Fame, and they are two of my very, very dearest friends in the wrestling business. So I'm really happy that I am being honored at the same time they are. So that's pretty special too.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Well, you speak about being honored. I was, we picked the two inductees, Jerry Briscoe, of course, very well deserving. His brother Jack's been in it, I think, from the first class that we put in because of what he all did for the business. But then JJ, when Pam asked me to do the induction of her father, what an honor, that I get to do that, because what a guy JJ is and all the accomplishments he's made. And of course, then JBL agrees to come in and do the induction for Jerry Briscoe. That's
awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
It's a big show.
Yeah,
it really is. I might have to take a flight and come down.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, come on.
Yeah, we'll make room for you.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear some stories, Darla. What kind of stories have you got, growing up in this business like this?
Okay, so when I was a little girl, my grandparents had season seats at Kiel Auditorium, and so we went. I think then it was like every other Friday. My grandma always had to sit on the in seat on the aisle so that she would tell me, I got to wipe the sweat off their backs. And so that was something that I'll always remember. But I also, back then, one of my favorites, and I don't think a lot of people knew who this guy was except St. Louis, was John Paul Hennig. And oh gosh, I don't remember when it was, but he was in a car accident, and then he became a minister after that. And he was doing a revival one year in my hometown, and my grandparents, they're like, come on, we're going to take you to church. We're going to go see John Paul Hennig. So we went, and I have a wrestler's autograph in my Bible.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so growing up, my favorites from different eras changed. I also loved Cowboy Bob Ellis, and so I went with my parents and my grandparents during childhood. And then, but this was the story that I told you I wanted to tell, because there's not a whole lot of people that know this, but in September of 1974, I started cosmetology, and I was a junior in high school. So before class one day, I was reading a wrestling magazine, and this lady walked up to me. She was older, and she was a private student, and she said, do you like wrestling? I said, oh my gosh, I've loved wrestling my whole entire life. And I said, are you a wrestling fan? She said, yes. She said, I date Jack Briscoe. And I said, wow. Come on, tell me something else. Because, at this point in my life, these guys they were like movie stars to me. I couldn't even imagine knowing, somebody knowing them. So she said, no, seriously. She said, and the next time he's in town, she said, if your parents will let you go with me, I'll introduce you to him.
Oh, wow.
And so I did a lot of talking to my mom and dad, and they're like, yeah, we don't know her, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I talked him into it. So sure enough, she introduced me to Jack, and then super, super nice guy. And so he was the first wrestler I ever met, the first one I became friends with, because after that, then she started taking me with her, and she had front row season seats. So, I was big stuff then. I got to sit in the front row. So Jack and I became friends, and he was the NWA champion at the time. And Jerry, his brother, he wrestled in St. Louis, but not nearly as much as Jack did. And I have to admit, and Herb, I'm sure you probably know, I had a crush on Jerry Briscoe. Okay.
Oh, I wouldn't have known that.
I still do, but don't tell him. So anyway, it got to the point where when I would see Jack, I would say, hi, Jack, how's Jerry? And he just kind of laughed. And one day he said to me, he said, Darla, he says, you do know that I'm the world champion. He said, did you ever stop and think maybe you should say, hi, Jack, how you doing? And then ask about Jerry. So it was kind of a cool story, but Jack was, in my opinion, in his era, he was the best NWA champion. I know people will argue with me, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And then I finally got to meet Jerry in 2005, and I have told him this story. He has told friends of his, but Jerry has become a very, very close friend of mine, and I can't wait to see him in May.
Awesome.
So that was the first wrestler I ever met and became friends with. Since then, I started going. By that time, I was old enough to go to wrestling at the Chase, because you had to be 16 to be able to get in the TV studio. Mm-hmm. And from 1974 until after Sam retired and Larry left the club, I didn't miss not one TV taping and not one Kiel Auditorium card. I was at every show and at the Checker Dome. And so, through that, I've become friends with probably just about every wrestler that ever came through St. Louis.
Awesome. Herb, you have anything to add?
Yeah, and you had to be 16 to get into wrestling at the Chase, unless you was Gary Jackson, and then we snuck him in.
Yeah, and I don't know how he pulled that off.
Well, his mom worked at the restaurant where Mickey Garagiola was the waiter, and
right.
And she wanted Gary to get into the wrestling, and so we actually started sneaking him in when he was about 14, 15. But and another good friend that Darla has, remember Sapphire, was Dusty Rhodes' valet.
Oh, Sapphire, yeah.
Before she was Sapphire, she used to wrestle for me as Princess Dark Cloud, and her and Darla was the best of friends.
Oh, really?
Juanita.
Tell me about your friendship with her.
So she was another one I just met going to the wrestling matches, and we became friends. We did a lot of traveling. Oh my gosh, all over. We belonged to a fan organization called the WFIA. It stood for Wrestling Fans International Association, and they would have conventions once a year, and this was back in the territory days, so it would be in a different territory every year, and we usually would drive to those. But one year they had it in Houston, Texas, and Juanita had never flown before, and she was terrified. But I told her, I said, I am not driving to Texas. So we flew, and she was a nervous wreck the whole entire time, and the flight attendants, they knew it, so they gave her special attention, and I can remember she sat next to the window of the plane and she looks out the window and she said, Darla, look out there. She said, there is one hell of a forest fire out there. Look at all that smoke. I said, neat, that's not smoke. Those are clouds and we're flying up above it. I thought she would pass out, but you know, she never met a stranger. She loved everyone. Everybody loved her. She was friends with all of the wrestlers, and when you know they were they were shocked when she got in with Vince's Sapphire. And I remember, I think it was Jack had seen her on television first and called Jerry and had Jerry turn the TV on because apparently they didn't know she was going up there to work for Vince, but she was just amazing. We went to Disney World one year, and you know they have all the characters walking around, and there was her and my sister was with us and another friend, and so we had kind of walked away, and I was like, you guys, where's Neat? We've lost Neat. And I turned around and looked. She's back there with all these characters signing autographs because a little boy had recognized her, and so she's standing there with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse signing autographs.
I remember the day that Larry Matisek he's the one that got her the job at Vince.
Yes.
I was at his house when he got the call, and they asked him, said, we're looking for an African-American female to become part of a skit that we're doing with Dusty Rhodes. And it was just like a snap of the finger. I mean, Larry and I both said, guess who we got? Because, I mean, she was so outgoing, you know, like Darla said, never met a stranger, happy-go-lucky, you know, she could walk into anywhere and become instant friends of everybody. And when Larry reached out to her and said, hey, are you interested in going to New York? You know, she got scared. What do you mean? And of course, Larry had to break it down to her. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to Juanita.
Oh, that's a great story. See, that I didn't know that. But a lot of people didn't know that.
No, only a few people that would know. And I tell you, from that point on, anytime that I would hear from her, see her, you know, Darla, tell them about when we you called me when we were in Vegas, and I was up in the other part of the casino when you met her son, Rico.
Yeah, so her son lives in Vegas, and I hadn't seen Rico, oh my gosh, since he was a teenager probably. And so he had reached out to me on Facebook, and he told me he was living in Vegas. And I told him, I said, Rico, I'm going to be out there. And I said, you know, there's going to be a lot of people there that know your mom. And I said, can you come to the hotel? I want you to meet your mother's friends. And he came to the hotel where we were at, and I called her. I said, Rico's down there. Jerry Briscoe, I got in touch with him. Jerry cried when he saw Rico, and because Rico looks, oh my gosh, he looks just like his mother, and it really touched Rico's heart. He's become friends with so many now from that initial meeting out there in Vegas, and yeah, he was just so excited and so honored to meet everybody, because he didn't, when he was a little boy, he went, but as he got older, you know, he don't want to hang out with mom and her friends, but he sure wanted to hang out with mom's friends that day.
Oh yeah, well, and when you called me downstairs, you introduced me to him. It made me feel good because he said, I used to hear my mom talk about you guys and us. And he said, I know you were part of helping her get her job that she just really loved. So that made me feel good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Great story. Great story. What else you got for us? What other great stories? I know there's a lot in there.
Tell them about the Kelly twins.
Oh my God.
We can't tell.
So, and Herb, I don't even know if you know how I initially met them, but they were, at the time, I think they were still in the Kansas City territory. And of course, Juanita was friends with them. And they were, I don't know, Papa, if you know who they are, but they were identical twins. They were big, redheaded guys, bald headed, and they were
identical twins.
Identical. And they were heels. And, you know, I had friends that were heels, but I really wasn't, whatever. So anyway, they were at wrestling at the Chase, and we were standing out in back on the parking lot. It was after the taping, and Juanita came over to me and she said, Darla, she says, come here, the Kelly twins want to meet you. And I said, get out of here. I said, I don't want to meet those guys. And she said, no, come over here. They want to meet you. So I did, and I started talking to them, and so they were getting ready to go to Kansas City, and then they were leaving there, and in a few days, and they were going to Dick the Bruiser's territory. So Mike, he asked me for my phone number, so I gave him my phone number, and we started talking on the phone, and one thing led to another, and I dated him for 5 years, and spent a lot of time with him in Indianapolis, and went to California when they were out there and stayed, and went to Canada and met his family. And if my sister Crystal is on there, I have to tell this, because if I don't, she will be mad at me. So my sister had just got married, and her husband had this their first apartment, and Mike was in town, because then they started working for Herb. So they would come into town and they'd stay a few weeks at a time, and they always stayed with me, of course. But anyway, my sister was so excited because she made spaghetti dinner and invited us up for dinner. So if she's on here, Sissy, I let them know you made spaghetti dinner for Mike Kelly. But so when they were in Indianapolis, they became really good friends with Spike Huber, and I was friends with Spike. And even after this, Spike and I remained good friends for a few years. But Spike always called us Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, because they never went anywhere without the other one. I mean, they were very close brothers, and you might as well have said they were attached, because they just didn't do anything without. But it was a great time in my life. And Pat Kelly was in the car accident with Adrian Adonis and the Bear Man. They were killed. Mike was the only survivor, and I talked to him this past summer. He's doing very well, and he lives in Buffalo, New York. But oh my gosh, what great guys they were. And I'm so glad that Juanita talked me into meeting them, because it was a good 5 years.
You remember the when they were working for me, when we always had them in the tag matches, of course, because they were identical twins, and they would do the switcheroos, you know, back and forth, and we worked it up. And of course, we had Bruiser Brody and Spike Huber, and we finally brought them in to go against them. And it was Brody that came up with the idea to sell, and we ended up, if they lost one match, then the following month, one of them had to wear a dress. And so that's what we ended up doing. That was talked about forever and ever. And
do you know which one wore the dress?
Now, you know, I'm old. I can't remember like that.
It was Pat.
You probably helped him get dressed.
It was Pat that wore the dress. And do you remember what color it was?
It was, I think it was like a flower. I remember it
was hot.
First had a brick in it.
It was hot pink and a lime green. I have pictures of it still. We laughed about that forever. And it went over. It was hot. People loved it.
I thought you were going to tell me you still had the dress.
I don't have that dress.
That would have been back in 83, 82, 80, something like that. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Hey, tell him the Jerry Briscoe and the steak and shake story.
You do know that Jerry wants to go out for a real steak dinner, right?
Oh, I ain't thinking about no steak dinner. If I did, it's gonna be steak and shake again.
So, so several years ago, Herb brought Jerry Briscoe and his son Wes into St. Louis, and I was living in Minnesota at the time, or no, I wasn't. I was still in St. Louis. So anyway, they told Jerry they were going to take him out for a steak dinner. So Jerry and Wes, they're riding with me in the car, and we're following Herb and Larry.
Mhm.
And we turn into the restaurant, and Jerry goes, "Where are we going?" We turned into Steak and Shake because that was Larry's favorite place to eat after the matches. And they had told Jerry he was having a steak dinner. Well, he kind of did. He had a steak sandwich and a steak burger and fries, and he never let us forget it.
To this day, he tells that story everywhere we go. And
Does he?
that dang Herb Simmons, he tell you he's gonna buy you a steak dinner, and he ends up taking you to a steak and shake.
we got a question for you, Darla.
Uh-oh.
Chris Owens says, Darla, do any of the matches you saw live at the Keel over the years still stand out in your memory?
All of the matches that I saw with Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk Jr., those were my all-time favorite matches. Those two guys, they could go an hour, and I mean, they could have probably went 2 hours back then. So those are always the matches that stand out in my mind that I loved and I could watch over and over again. But here's a funny story, Chris. And by the way, I can't wait to see you in May. And you better be bringing Carter with you. So one night, while I was sitting there in the front row, and Terry Funk was fighting against Blackjack Lanza. And all of a sudden, Terry had all this black stuff all over his face and starts dripping down. And we're like, what in the world is wrong with Terry? Well, when you look up, there's Blackjack, and all this black is dripping down from his forehead. And we didn't know what it was, but what we found out later was he was going bald on top, and they told us that he would use black shoe polish to cover his bald spot. And when he started sweating, it was dripping all over Terry. Yeah. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, the one match that I always wanted to see was Terry and Dory against Jack and Jerry. And I've seen it on YouTube matches, but I never did get to see that match live. And that is one match I always wanted to see.
Oh, all right. Let's talk about the event coming up. Let everybody know. Is it going to be streamed anywhere, like the actual show?
No, it won't be. I just don't have the ability to do that on this show at the ballroom. But it's scheduled for Saturday, May the 13th.
Okay.
At the Aviator Hotel and Ballroom in St. Louis, Missouri. It's right off of 55 and Lindbergh. Used to be an old Holiday Inn, but it's the Aviator Suites, and nice location, easy to get to. We got so much going on. This is the 64th year anniversary of the Memories of Wrestling at the Chase. It started in 1959. So if it would have stayed on the air, and I say the memories because we'll have the St. Louis Wrestling Portable Hall of Fame set up there with all the plaques of the inductees in it. And we also have a television attached to that, to where we'll be playing a lot of these old tapes that I've got. I've got the entire collection of the St. Louis collection. So we'll be playing them throughout the day. We'll do a little question and answer thing, kind of like what we're sitting here doing today with some of the boys. Okay. And, that may change throughout the day. But the Fan Fest will start off at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
and we won't turn anybody away. I'm big about overcrowding if I have to, but then we'll have the induction of the Jerry Briscoe and J.J. Dillon into the Hall of Fame that evening. And then at 7:00, the SICW matches will take off. I haven't even announced the card yet for that.
Oh,
And
wow.
phone's been ringing off the hook. I mean, we've got people that's bought tickets from Canada, from Texas,
Wow.
from Indianapolis. So if it keeps going the way it's going, it should be a good crowd. The list of names, I think, speaks for itself. And as I sit here tonight, there's probably at least 3 or 4 more names that is going to be added to the list.
Awesome.
So.
Maybe you could squeeze me in there somewhere.
So, Herb, are you gonna be able to play the Wrestling at the Chase documentary?
Yes, we're talking about that. And of course, that's the other thing we didn't mention.
Okay.
Darla was a superstar in the Head Over Heels, the PBS documentary that was done. Our good friend Ed Wheatley, who wrote the second book of Wrestling at the Chase, produced the Head Over Heels, and Darla got to become a movie star and did a great job telling her stories on there. And
Awesome.
so we're making plans to have it playing throughout the day, off and on.
Awesome.
'Cause
When,
it's got a lot of the local guys in it that took place, like Gary Jackson and
Yeah.
Cowboy Bob Orton's in it, and so it turned out
cool.
real good. And the one thing that I haven't even told Darla yet, that it's probably was on Larry's bucket list before he passed away. We tried on several times, but October 15th, we're going to be going back to the Chase Park Plaza at the Coruscant Room.
oh,
Yeah, so I know it brings kind of tears because he always wanted to do that, because that's but it's going to be for a private show. But again, just to be able to say that we're going back there underneath those beautiful chandeliers is going to be great.
Awesome. And we got a comment. Clint Terrell he says, I'm enjoying the heck out of the show. That's great. Thank you.
Well, I got to tell you about Clint. Clint is
oh my gosh.
wrestling fan, a personal friend. I met him a few years back. He's been to Vegas with us. And I mean, when you talk about guys that's on the top of that list of being friends and wrestling fans, if I had anything to say bad about him, it's he's always roots for the bad guys. But that's okay. I
know he likes Travis Cook. Oh my God.
I used to like the Fritz von Erichs and the Killer Kowalskis and Buddy Rogers against Cowboy Bob Ellis. Chris had asked that question to Darla, the matches that stick out in my mind. I've got so many of them, so many great ones that people say, well, how can you remember them? Well, because I loved them. And it was my passion. I mean,
right.
We loved them, so.
Absolutely.
But no, it's going to be a good show. Like I said, people can go to sicw.org, the package, and I think, Darla, you would agree we've kept this pretty feasible economically.
Yes. When I saw what the prices were, I was like, Herb, are you sure? I mean, some of these conventions, these fan fest I see, they're like $175 to $200 a day just for a ticket for a day, and not near as many guys on those shows as there are on this. So yes, the ticket prices are phenomenal for this.
Well, and that's what I had told Nick. I want to make it fan friendly. I want people to come and enjoy themselves. I want everything to run like clockwork. Now, I'm a realist to the fact that I know there's going to be some hiccups. There's no doubt about it. But I just want the fans to come and enjoy themselves for the day, stick around for the wrestling that night, meet these great legends. Barbara Goodish will be there presenting the winner of that trophy cup to the winner. I mean, it's going to be just an all-out card. And I know they have these fan fests throughout the country, but this is actually the first time one of this size has been in St. Louis. Wow. And I mean, we had one in Darla knows back in 2012, Larry and I worked with a guy that wanted to have one. And there was a gentleman named Colonel Buck Robley back then that was a good friend of ours, and great in the business, great mind for it. And he was kind of the front man for it. But they brought in 22 legends and they lost their tail on it. That's what kind of scares me. I will throw that out there. But they didn't do it. They didn't have a wrestling show. They didn't have a game. So we've got a lot to add in for the price of it. When you got the likes of Greg Gagne is going to join us there, Black Bar, Teddy Long is bringing his podcast with Mac Davis, and they're after our road show. And Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South. I mean, it's an all-star card.
It's a all-star card. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tugboat, Buff Bagwell.
Absolutely.
Serena says hi.
Serena says hi.
Hi, Serena.
Serena's my executive booker. She gets a lot of my guests.
We love Serena getting all the good guests.
That's right. Crystal Hale. Darla, how about pickups at the airport?
What'd she say?
How about pickups at the airport?
Oh my gosh. I used to pick up a lot of the guys at the airport.
Wow.
And I think probably what she's probably wanting me to tell, this is my sister, by the way, that made spaghetti dinner for the Kelly twins.
Oh, okay.
But so one time I took Andre the Giant back out to the Marriott Hotel, and at the time I had a Buick LeSabre, so it was a pretty big car. And I was friends with Rick Martel, so he asked me if I could give Andre a ride, and I said sure, he can go with us. So of course Andre took up, I think, the entire back seat of the car, and my dad swore up and down that after Andre rode in the back seat of my car, that he had to take it in and have new shocks put on. So I'm sure that's a true story, but I mean, there were a lot. I took Frank Bruiser Brody to the airport, David Von Erich. I was very good friends with Rick Martel and Hulk Hogan back then. So I was always with them, but I hadn't spoke to Hulk Hogan in probably 30 years. And a couple months ago, I was on the phone with Brian Blair, and
that was about a month ago.
Yeah, about a month ago. And the Hulkster happened to be at Brian's house.
Oh,
so
okay.
Brian put him on speaker, and he said, "Who am I talking to?" And I said, "This is Darla from St. Louis." I said, "You probably don't remember me, but I said, I used to hang out with you." And he said, "What makes you think I wouldn't remember you?" He said, "You had a Camaro, and I hated that car." And I said, "Oh my gosh, he does remember, because when I first met him, I had the LeSabre, and then I thought I was cool. I traded in on this brand new Camaro, and I pick him up at the airport, and he had to recline the seat all the way back just to fit in the car. And he said, "I hated that damn car." So it was pretty cool to reconnect with him and talk. And he's invited myself and Barbara and Pam down to his bar restaurant in Florida when I get moved down there. So I'm pretty excited to get to do that too. But yeah,
That's
he
awesome.
was always a super nice guy. And awesome. I have to mention, I cannot do this without saying something. So one of my very best friends in the business, and I had a lot of them, but this guy was really, really special to me, was Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. And I met him before he started wrestling, and we connected and became friends. And then he got into the Kansas City area, and Sam would put him on his cards, and I became friends with him through the WFIA conventions, and I became friends with his whole entire family, his mom, his dad, his brother, his sister, and still keep in touch with his brother and his mom and his sister. In fact, I got to see Doug this past September. He went to Cauliflower Alley, and they're good people. And if Eddie Gilbert was a friend of yours, you had a friend for life. There wasn't anything that he wouldn't do for you. And I miss him every single day. He was taken so soon.
Bob, I want to mention just one other thing. We talk about all the legends that's coming there. And Darla mentioned Andre the Giant. And for the fans out there and I know there isn't a wrestling fan that don't know Andre the Giant, but Chris Owens, the gentleman who was commenting on her earlier, is joining us, and he has got a collection of Andre the Giant. He knows more about the history of Andre the Giant than you'll ever know,
Awesome.
and he's going to bring. I hope he brings that whole display with him. And
I saw that picture.
If you're a big Andre the Giant fan, which Andre we called him,
Andre.
We called him the Gentle Giant when he was here. I had the honor of, when he would come to town, Sam would always bring him over to a place in Illinois. There was quite a place called Jack English's Bar and Grill, and it was a place where he could go and he didn't have anybody wanting to challenge him. Right. Some of the bars in downtown St. Louis, he'd walk in and there'd always be somebody who had a little bit too much brewski. Right. And hey, you ain't as tough as you think you are. Well, Sam knew that over here that wouldn't happen, but you could just sit and talk with, and everybody was the boss, but that's worth the price of ticket just to come and see the collection Chris has got.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stories, Darla.
There is one legend that's not going to be able to join us May 13th. That makes me so very sad, because he's another one that is one of my bestest friends in the world, and that's Bill Apter. And I know there's reasons why he can't make it, but
it's his anniversary.
I know it's his anniversary.
I told him bring his wife.
Oh gosh, no, she wouldn't do that. But how could you book a show on Bill Apter's anniversary?
That's what he asked me. The last time we had him in, it was his birthday.
Yep.
And he took the cake in the face. Bill Apter, great guy.
Awesome. Darla, thank you for coming on and sharing your great stories with us.
I love this. It was so much fun.
I had so much fun having you on. And Herb, what can I say? We've become good pals, you and I.
I told you she would be dull. She wouldn't know what to say.
He said the opposite, just so you know.
Herb, how long have we been friends?
Now you're going to tell my age.
Well, mine too.
Oh, wait a minute. Look who's on there.
Pamela Morrison says, great show.
Pamela.
Hi, Kingsme.
Love you, Pam. JJ.
She's my girl.
Who's that?
JJ Dillon's daughter.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Bam. That's the man who puts it all together. Papa D.
Papa Denk. That's me.
Yeah.
You need to get Pam on here next. She has a lot of good stories.
Pam, I've got first rights to her.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, she's going to do my TV show.
She loves you both. She loves you both.
She's going to do my TV show.
All right, Pam, come after.
I'm going to dedicate the whole hour to her.
Nice.
Come after. Crystal says she always has something to say about wrestling. Great show.
Oh, great. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
Papa, my whole entire family is going May 13th, and they're not even wrestling fans, and they've already bought their tickets.
That's awesome.
Really, they're Herb fans is what they are.
They're Herb fans. They love Herb because they love the fish that Herb makes.
Don't mention that word. It's Lent.
I know.
Trouble for not cooking this year.
Uh-oh.
That's right. It is Lent.
Darla, I love you, dear.
I love you too.
Thank you very much. Herb, thank you. Everybody who's in the chat tonight, thank you for coming on. Hopefully, Herb, I'll see you again. It seems like we're destined to be good pals, you and I.
We will. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Darla, I'm adding you to that list of good pals that I'm making.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks so much.
All right. Awesome. Oh, Darla got kicked out for a moment.
Uh-oh.
She's a bad girl.
Don't be telling no bad stories, Herb.
Well, I wouldn't do that.
All right. Herb, Darla, stick around real quick. Everybody else, have a good night. We'll be back tomorrow night. I didn't even get a chance to say all the stuff I got going on tomorrow. Jeez. I got 3 big episodes tomorrow. I got Chaos coming on at 7. Scarlet Rose coming on at 9. Oh, that's you, Darla. That was Michael. I got so many things in here. Oh, and Dominic Stuckey coming on at 8 o'clock. And in June, I will have Billy Starks joining me. Very hot right now, Billy Starks. Let me tell you, in the Indies. Oh, yeah. She might be signed soon. I don't know. She might have to cancel me because she's going to join WWE or something.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, guys. Everybody else have a good night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night.